At the beginning of this year, I made the decision that I was gonna start a brand new collection. I've been collecting a lot of the same things for a very long time, and I felt that need to spice things up, to get some excitement injected back into this hobby and discover some toys that I've never truly discovered before. This is the story of my GI journey. Before we continue with today's video, I want to start by thanking today's sponsor, fellow lifelong toy collector and self-proclaimed Pixel Dan superfan, Rodney Langford, brand ambassador for Plexus and their line of gut health products. A few years ago, after a devastating loss of a spouse, Rodney found himself a single dad in his 40s, 100 pounds overweight, pre-diabetic, with high cholesterol and blood pressure, gout, and being medicated for insomnia. That's when he began his gut health journey. Fast forward several months and Rodney lost 60 pounds, was no longer pre-diabetic, no more gout or insomnia, and his cholesterol and blood pressure levels returned to normal. Recently, Stina and I had the opportunity to try out and learn more about this amazing lineup of gut health products. We found them easy, affordable, and delicious. These simple to use products help increase energy levels and aid in weight loss. You'll feel better all around. Because of Rodney's passion for the toy collector community, this offer is exclusive for my viewers. Rodney has made a private share link which includes a discount code with every initial purchase. As an added benefit, Rodney is committed to helping his fellow toy community get healthy and live long, energy-filled lives. And with your purchase, you also get Rodney's personal one-on-one expertise and product coaching. In addition, for the rest of the month of December, it's only $1 to join, and you can use the code GIVE10 at checkout for an additional $10 in savings per order. The new year is coming up fast, and that means New Year's resolutions. Let Rodney help you get your new year off to its best start and let 2024 be the year to reach those health goals. Scan the QR code here or check out the link in the video description to start your health journey. Thank you to Rodney Langford for sponsoring today's video.
Ninja Force! The Joes lose again, Scarlet!
You're the one that just rolled Snake Eyes!
It's the G.I. Joe Ninja Force with real ninja moves! Here's Snake Eyes on the Ninja Lightning with Thunder Missiles and Zip Strip Speed! And now Joe and Cobra Ninja Raiders Ginsu and Red Ninja spring into action in their own fast attack vehicles with a Ninja Surprise! Joe and Cobra Ninja Raiders come with exclusive figures. G.I. Joe Ninja Lightning and Ninja figures sold separately. We need that gold to build our ultimate weapon!
Tough break!
The story of my G.I. Joe collecting adventure is one that I find pretty fun, and why I'm doing this video to share it with all of you today. You see, if you've been following me on this YouTube channel on my 15-year journey to sharing my passion about the toy collecting hobby, then you know the kind of toys that I'm into. Masters of the Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all of those weirdos. So G.I. Joe was a toy line that I don't hold a ton of nostalgia for, but I do hold a little nostalgia for. Nostalgia is what I often cite as a driving force in collecting. It's always that thing that sort of kickstarts things for you. I had that when I was a kid. I always wanted that when I was a kid. Fond memories are what seems to bring us into this hobby, but then discovering exciting new things is what keeps us in this hobby. Now, I've been collecting Masters of the Universe, Ninja Turtles, and lots of other toy lines in between for many, many years. but I really felt the draw of a new toy line. I really felt the pull of G.I. Joe. And you see, I did mention that I have a little bit of nostalgia for it. And that's because I did have some G.I. Joe action figures as a kid. Now, I was a bit of a latecomer to G.I. Joe. You see, throughout the 1980s, it was all about He-Man for me, so I didn't pay any attention to G.I. Joe. But in the early 90s, I got bitten by the bug. Suddenly, G.I. Joes were on my wish list, and well, it just so happens that I have my very small G.I. Joe collection from when I was a kid. So I think there's no better place to start than with my childhood Joes. So this shoebox right here holds my childhood G.I. Joe collection. Now this isn't the actual shoebox, because you can see it's a modern Masters of the Universe shoebox, but I wanted the shoebox here to represent the exact way that I stored my small G.I. Joe collection as a child, and why this lasted into my adult years. I have very few toys from when I was a kid, but somehow I maintained this very small collection of G.I. Joe action figures. Now, I got into G.I. Joe a bit later, which probably explains why I like the figures that I do. For me, it all started with this guy right here, Range Viper. I had a friend in the neighborhood while I was growing up who I spent a lot of time with in my younger years, and he had a lot of G.I. Joe action figures. So all of my experiences with G.I. Joe up until that point came from playing with them over at his house. This figure right here was one that I really took to. I always thought it was really awesome, and he had multiples of this particular figure. Maybe it's that skull-headed mask, definitely leans into the sort of character that I like in my toys, but I always really liked this figure. One day, my friend gave me one of his extra Range Vipers, so this right here became my very first G.I. Joe action figure, and as a result, this one is always going to be very special to me. In this box here is another one that actually came from the same friend. Unfortunately, it looks like over the years, the O-ring wore out and it snapped. So maybe this will end up being one of the first O-ring replacements that I do. But Heat Viper is another one that was given to me, and I always thought he was really interesting looking as well. Of course, the bright color is nice. Always thought that helmet was so unique, how the visor is on like the side of his head. And of course, he's not complete. He's got a broken tab on one of his feet. He's still another special one though, because he came from my childhood. So aside from a couple of figures that were given to me by a neighborhood friend, I have a very specific memory of when I first really started getting into G.I. Joe figures. It would have been my birthday party, probably in 1991, maybe 1992. This is one of those birthday parties where you would invite lots of kids from your class at school, so several kids would show up. And I actually got many G.I. Joe figures that year, including this guy right here, Heavy Duty. I always thought he was incredibly cool with this massive rig that he's got, with the spring-loaded missiles. So this really kind of kicked off me starting to ask for G.I. Joe action figures for presents. So my dad, who grew up with the original G.I. Joe, was actually pretty excited that I was asking for these. And so some of the gifts that I got throughout the year, probably even for Christmas, contained some of these other figures like this Big Ben and like Sci-Fi here. I remember my dad specifically really liking Sci-Fi because he had a removable helmet. He thought that was cool. I unfortunately seem to have misplaced the helmet for mine. But the funny thing is, while my dad really liked a lot of these human characters, the guys, the normal guys, the military guys, this is the moment where I started to realize that I was definitely drawn more to some of the weirdos. Cobra Eel here is one that I remember really loving. those bright colors, this crazy robotic shark that attached to his back. I loved this guy. This particular version of Alley Viper was one of my absolute favorites as a kid. I remember buying this one probably with Christmas money or birthday money, so it's one that I picked out myself from Toys R Us. I thought this mask was just the coolest thing, and the bright yellow and the black just looked so good together in my opinion. Here's the brightly colored orange and green Cobra bat. Unfortunately, mine looks like he's missing the lenticular on his chest. This was another one that I thought was really cool though, a brightly colored robot guy. I did have some of the more basic guys that we would see featured in the cartoons as well. Like this was the only version of Duke that I ever had, and this was my version of Destro also as a kid. And this was my Cobra Commander, and let me tell you, I loved the fact that he was wearing black. I don't know what it is about the black and the silver, but I was so drawn to this as a kid, so I was ecstatic when I got this one added to my collection. Talking about some of the weirdos, this guy right here, Cesspool. Oh my goodness, the Eco Warriors, super weird stuff. Color changing feature with these big old water guns here. Also, this guy, he also has a removable helmet with quite the hideous face there. Oof. But then, my friends, that brings me to this guy, Slice. Slice was part of the Ninja Force assortment, and I loved this figure as a kid. Honestly, it's hard to say exactly what it is that drew me to him, but I love the red and the black together. That silver fencing-like mask was so cool and mysterious to me. I love the little details like this tiny little sai sculpted on his forearm, the star pattern on his gi. Something about this guy really stood out to me, but also the ninjas in general, guess what? Suddenly became one of my favorite things. So I ended up getting a few other Ninja Force figures. Here's Nunchuck. He's pretty cool, but he wasn't one of my favorites of the group. But I did always really like this version of Night Creeper. I mean, this was the only Night Creeper that I had, so it's what I loved. I thought those colors were so wacky in the best possible way. But then there's this Storm Shadow, and in my opinion, this is still the best Storm Shadow costume. I loved this design as a kid. This became my de facto ninja. Whenever I was playing with toys and needed a ninja, this was him. I think that this is such a cool looking figure and is absolutely one of my favorites from the Ninja Force collection. Speaking of those ninjas and gimmicks, the Shadow Ninjas were very appealing to me as well. So I have Snake Eyes. He was the only one that I had as a kid, but I loved that gimmick. Let's check it out. Basically, you take the figure, you dunk him in warm water, and the figure turns completely whited out as if he's gone invisible. You put him in cold water, and while it takes a little bit of time, you can see the color return. Now with Snake Eyes, the color that comes back is mostly seen in that pinkish bandolier that he's wearing, but also he does get a darker tone of gray the longer he's in the cold water. The funny thing is after sitting in a box for years and years and years, he was mostly whited out anyway. So I was pretty happy to see that putting him in cold water brought his color back. I love this gimmick. I know that gimmicks like this are not necessarily the favorite part of G.I. Joe for most of the diehard collectors out there, but this to me was exciting, and this is the type of thing that I remembered about G.I. Joe, which to be perfectly honest is what drew me back to it as an adult collector.
G.I. Joe Shadow Ninjas, masters of invisibility. Dunk them in warm water, invisibly concealed. Douse them with cold, true colors revealed. Stealth warriors with fast action ninja moves. Karate kick, secret ninja tricks. Shadow Ninjas. Each sold separately. Color change takes 30 seconds.
Ninja Force. It's all about those ninjas. At least that's what I thought when this year started. You see, my memories of my childhood G.I. Joes really did center around those neon 90s ninjas that, well, are kind of the joke of the G.I. Joe collecting world, if I'm being totally honest. You see, while I am drawn to these bright colors and these cool ninja designs, which, by the way, I totally get how the neons don't really work with that whole ninja idea. I've noticed that a lot of fans out there were saying that these were the G.I. Joes that they didn't like, that this was the turning point in the original toy line where things started shifting too campy and goofy and got away from that original military feel. So I understand that, but I can't help who I am. I just told you guys that I spent all of the 80s loving Masters of the Universe. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is my other favorite toy line. I like things like Toxic Crusaders, like Inhumanoids, like Madballs. Do you see what's similar about all those lines? I like bright colors and weirdos. So I think it makes sense that those 90s era Joes are the ones that I'm attracted to. But also, it's because that's the era I'm nostalgic for. So Ninja Force became my driving force for collecting G.I. Joe. It's just where I decided I wanted to start. I was drawn to those bright colors. I remembered loving the few ninjas that I had as a kid, so it seemed like a fun way to dabble into G.I. Joe collecting. And of course, Ninja Force Zartan, who I started seeing way back at the beginning of the year, became the first one that I really wanted to get a hold of. I know now, after hearing from so many people, that this is a figure that most people within the G.I. Joe collecting community don't really like. Yet, I do. And it's hard to explain exactly what it is. But first of all, the bright green pants with the purple on the boots, that bright neon orange mohawk with the face paint. Maybe it's the pro wrestling fan in me, but this guy really stands out as a fun looking action figure. I know a lot of people have basically accused me of trolling the community by choosing this as my favorite, but I assure you, that's not what I was meaning to do here. I think Ninja Force Zartan is so much fun. In fact, I liked him so much that I ended up picking him up twice loose over the course of the year because I found one later on that had more of his accessories and decided I couldn't pass up on him. And I even got a carded version. So now I'm sitting here with 3 different Ninja Force Zartans, and I'm totally happy with that. And there's no way I'm going to turn this into a weird army building character, except I can't promise that I'm not going to do that. But aside from Ninja Force Zartan, I picked up so many of the amazing Ninja Force figures this year. I picked up Bonsai while I was at the Gnarly Toy Box while visiting Colorado. Bushido was given to me as a gift from my friend Brandon at PowerCon. I found Snake Eyes at Tampa Toy Con, and Scarlet at the G.I. Joe and Action Figure Convention in Dallas, Texas. I picked up Dojo from my friends at Eternia Dreams, and I picked up Dice and TJ Bang? Tuj Bang? How do you say that? I don't know, but I got those guys at Retro Toy Con in South Carolina. It's a pretty good assortment of ninjas that I picked up this year. And in fact, if you add my Nunchuck, my Slice, my Night Creeper, and my Storm Shadow from my childhood collection, I've got a really great collection of Ninja Force figures. In fact, on the loose side of things, I am now only missing the orange variant of Slice and the 2 driver figures, which are a bit more obscure to get because they came packaged with vehicles. I'm really happy with this, but this isn't where I'm stopping with the ninjas, because I also decided that I want this entire lineup carded. And throughout the year, I picked up a couple of carded versions. I already mentioned that I picked up that Ninja Force Zartan figure. Well, that was actually gifted to me by my friend Brent back at Toylanta. And then Bushido on card was gifted to me by my friend Brandon again at PowerCon. I was also gifted Slice from my friends over at Take Me Home Tonight Toys. Man, seriously, the viewers of my channel are absolutely amazing, and I never expect gifts like this, but when people want to pitch in to help me build a collection, it really does mean a lot to me. So thank you all very much. But I also rounded that out by purchasing Storm Shadow from Retro Toy Con because I loved that one so much as a kid that I felt like it was a great place to start with the carded purchases because I knew he was going to be one of the higher priced ones. But do you remember that Snake Eyes figure that I showed you from my childhood, the Shadow Ninjas one? Well, I've decided that going along with the Ninja Force figures, I've got to include the Shadow Ninjas as well. I did pick up 3 loose ones this year. I've got Night Creeper. Unfortunately, he was just in a dollar bin. I scooped him up very excitedly and didn't realize until I got home that he doesn't have hands. His hands have been chewed off. I also have Nunchuck, though he has broken thumbs, but I did get a really nice Shadow Ninja Storm Shadow while at Kane County Toy Show. And at that same Kane County, I also purchased 2 carded Shadow Ninjas figures to add to my collection, so my carded collection is growing, but I've got a lot of those left to get still, and I think the carded Ninja Force and Shadow Ninjas will be a big focus going forward in 2024. Staying in line with the Ninja Force, I did also pick up the Ninja Cycle. Now, this is shown on the box with Snake Eyes, but I decided that this is more Ninja Force Zartan's jam, so I gave the bike to him. So, obviously, the Neon Ninjas are great. I was very excited and very happy with the figures that I was able to accumulate throughout this entire year, whether I was finding them at toy shows or toy stores or being gifted them by amazing members of the toy community. And Ninja Force Zartan sort of became my mascot because one of the things that I found so incredibly cool about this entire journey is that you, the audience, were really cheering this on. It seemed like the more I was talking about these figures, the more I was looking at them on my toy hunts, the more you were all rooting for me, and it made things that much more exciting. In fact, I made this t-shirt to show my love for the weird Ninja Force Zartan look. I even dressed up as Ninja Force Zartan for Halloween, which led to me doing my first ever cosplay at a convention. So the Neon 90s, they're a lot of fun. I like them. I know they're not loved by everybody, but I really enjoyed picking these figures up and laughing along with the audience out there. But it seemed to just be a bit of a stepping stone, a bit of a gateway, because they weren't the only figures that I was interested in. In fact, along the way, I discovered a whole bunch of incredibly cool looking action figures that I suddenly felt the need to add to my collection. So sticking with the theme of the weirdos, I did pick up the Cobra Law team earlier this year. These guys are so weird, especially Globulus there with the big bendy snake body, but I had to have them. So strange. And maybe, just maybe, this was my moment of trolling. Because talking to my friends Brent and Dave, both avid G.I. Joe collectors, they informed me back at the G.I. Joe and action figure convention that Raptor and Crystal Ball were 2 of the least favorite figures, and it just had to do with the fact that they were shelf warmers as kids. These things hung on the pegs, so everybody had multiples of figures like Crystal Ball. Well, I took that as a challenge and I bought both of them at the show. They were easy to get, complete. They were both on the cheaper side, and come on, Crystal Ball's got a lenticular shield? That's amazing. Just stare at that shield. Get hypnotized. You all love Crystal Ball now. A very intelligent commenter online while I've been posting pictures throughout the years said to me, Dan, I hate to tell you this, but you don't like G.I. Joe, you like Cobra. And I realize that that is an accurate statement, because some of the things that I had the most fun collecting were the weird variations of some of the Cobra bad guys, like Alley Viper and like Cobra Incinerators. I thought these two were amazing. I love their design. I love their colors. I had to add them to my collection. Speaking of Cobra, here's the Cobra Commander that I bought this year, and this is one that I didn't even know existed, but this is from the weird Star Brigade lineup. You know, G.I. Joe in space, because every toy line's got to go to space at some point. This Cobra Commander has got a weird color scheme. It's purple, it's light blue, he just looks like Skeletor. I guess maybe that's why I like him so much. But also, that helmet, first of all, doesn't look anything like Cobra Commander. I had no idea that's who this was until I was told. But I love the helmet because it's got serious Xenomorph vibes. It looks like it comes straight out of the Alien franchise. It's also removable, and his face underneath is boring, super boring. Put that helmet back on. But I love this guy, and I love his weird suction cup weapon thing that I have no idea how it's supposed to work. So this guy right here, this is Clean Sweep, and this was gifted to me by a fan named Kyle back at PowerCon because he wanted to contribute to the weird stuff in my G.I. Joe collection. Now, I hadn't even considered buying anything from the Eco Warriors line yet, but this dude is hilarious. I love his normal, regular dad mustache look going on underneath his helmet. But also, I happen to have a few of the Eco Warriors figures from my childhood collection, so hey, I can put these guys together. Fun. Okay, so when I started buying these figures, I knew that aside from the ninjas, there were a few characters that I absolutely wanted to track down and add to my collection. There were 3, as a matter of fact, and one of those is right here, Big Boa. I always thought Big Boa was so incredibly cool looking. He's a boxer wearing this crazy helmet. Yeah, sure, why not? It kind of reminds me of like the fighting games when I was a kid, very Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat-ish. Also, this one's not complete. I don't have his punching bag or anything like that. Still love him. Maybe at some point I will look for a complete version. But aside from him, one of the other figures I knew that I wanted to get was Serpentor. I had been running into Serpentor's air chariot by itself while doing toy hunts, and every time I saw it, it started leaning me a little closer to buying G.I. Joe. So this is another figure aside from the ninjas that I have to thank for me going on this journey. Back at Eternia Dreams earlier in the year, I got this beautiful specimen that's got a nice air chariot with its parts. I've got the little dagger. I've got a nice cape. I love Serpentor. But I think the one figure that I really wanted the most outside of the ninjas is this beauty right here, Crocmaster. Oh my goodness. I love Crocmaster. Everything about this one's design, from that black mask with the piercing red eyes and the strange breathing apparatus, the croc-skinned vest, that big belt with the yellow eye in the center of it. This dude is amazing. His design is incredible. He comes with a pet crocodile. I am not exaggerating when I say that Crocmaster just might be my absolute favorite G.I. Joe figure. Now here's another set I bought while I was at the G.I. Joe and Action Figure show. I wanted to stick to the original G.I. Joe toy line, but this set right here, this Bat Army Builder set, was released in 2003 as a KB Toy Stores exclusive. I think it was also a mail-away exclusive, and it's an early 2000s set, but it's utilizing the molds from the original toy line. Now, I already liked bats. I showed you guys the neonish one that I had as a kid. This set right here was even cooler because not only did we get these sleek black bats, but we also got these 2 translucent red bats, which are amazing, and we got Overkill. Now, Overkill did come out in the original line, but he had one of those talking backpacks stuck to his back. This was a great way to get this figure, who I think is an incredible design, by the way, without that talking backpack. So I sprung for this set. It was a little on the expensive side, but I love it, and I'm so glad that I added this one to my collection. And then there's this, and this is the one that should make all of you G.I. Joe fans happy, because while I was visiting St. Louis Comics and Toys near the end of the year here, I decided to get the original 1983 Destro. I've always liked the look of this figure. I mean, come on, his head is vac metalized. How could you not love this chrome domed dude? But this was one that actually my wife convinced me I should go ahead and spring for. She looked at it and she said, this looks like a figure that's something you would love. And she's right. I'm so glad that I got this one, and it's probably now the oldest G.I. Joe figure in my entire collection. And that right there is Pixel Dan's G.I. Joe class of 2023. This is everything that I picked up all throughout the year, and it all started because I wanted to dabble into something that, while I didn't have a lot of as a kid, I knew made me happy for the limited time that I played with them, for the small amount of them that I had. And I've got this amazing new collection. It's a pretty impressive lineup. When I look at this little collection that I built up in 1 year, at the beginning of this year, I just wanted to dabble in something different. I wanted to seek out and collect some new toys that I hadn't really spent the last several years collecting. And along the way, I started getting more and more excited because I was discovering uncharted territory for Pixel Dan. I was discovering figures that I either overlooked before or didn't even know existed. And you know what? I was having a blast. It was so much fun finding these toys that I had just been overlooking all these years. And it made it fun to collect. And that is the key. And it's where I want to end this video. It's a very important point that I think needs to be made. You see, when I first decided that I was going to not only start collecting some G.I. Joe figures, but I was going to share that experience with my viewers here on this channel, the reality is I was a little nervous. And that sounds weird, right? But here's the thing. With G.I. Joe, I felt like an outsider looking in. And a bit of me was worried that I was not going to be accepted. But those worries were quickly brushed aside. You see, one of the incredible things about this entire journey is the friendships that I made along the way. I ran into so many people at all of these conventions who loved the fact that I was now dedicating my time to collecting their favorite toy line. Even if I was focusing on things like the 90s ninjas, the part of the line that a lot of people don't like, they were still happy that I was experiencing a line that they love, that was so near and dear to them. On top of that, I had so many people tell me that they too have always loved the weirdos in the toy lines. And me showing everybody that it was okay to collect them made them feel vindicated, made them feel happy. And that, my friends, is what I want to talk about. Because toy collecting should always be about the fun. It should always be about what you love to collect. It should always be about what makes you happy. It wasn't that long ago that toy collecting was looked down upon by the mass majority of the public. Toys are for kids. Why do you care about these childish things? But we changed that. We changed that. And the world knows that it's okay to be a nerd for the thing that makes you happy. So, within our community, we need to remember that. We need to remember that it's okay to like the Neon Ninjas. It's okay to like the Military Joes. It's okay to like the Funko Pops. I've always lived by the motto that there's no wrong way to collect. As long as you're not hurting anybody, there's no wrong way to collect, because it's all about what makes you happy. If you have found that joy, if you have found that fun, then congratulations, my friends. You're doing toy collecting right. Thank you for joining me on my GI journey. I had so much fun with this, and I'm looking forward to continuing that journey in the new year. Until next time, my friends.